Right then, what is the deal with all of this patch 9.1 business? Should you return to the World of Warcraft for this patch? Well, for today's video, we're just going to try to help you work that out. So what we're going to do today is we will cover the big new features, the pros and the cons of the patch, a few of the outstanding issues that the Shadowlands expansion still will face during this patch, and then we're going to work out whether this is right for you based on the type of content you actually like doing in the game. So first, let's do the new feature overview, and of course, if you already know all of this stuff, you can use the chapters to skip ahead. The Sanctum of Domination is our new raid. It clocks in at 10 bosses, and that includes Kel'Thuzad and Sylvanas. A bunch of real cool looking stuff, actually. And it brings with it the new Domination Shard system, which is a bit more controversial. So, new raid gear covering 5 slots will have Domination sockets, and via doing raid and world content, you'll be able to collect and upgrade Domination Shards, each of which has got some power in the actual shard and a type. And if you're wearing 3 shards of the same type, and you're wearing the helm that activates the Domination Shard set bonus, well, then you'll get the set bonus. Now, the shards are all basically generic, right? So it's not spec-based. So basically, it's a slowish upgrade over time. Now, the raid also does drop cooler than normal loot, including Sylvanas' bow, which is a legendary, a quiver, her dagger as well, and some other neat things like some cool trinkets and a sword that will eat other weapons to get more powerful. And still on PvE content, Tazavesh is our latest mega dungeon. It's an 8-boss long dungeon with some neat puzzle mechanics, some more inventive bosses, I suppose, a really cool setting, fresh cosmetic rewards, and a hard mode that drops item level 233 gear, which is a bit higher than Sanctum of Domination normal mode. That's not all for dungeons, though. Mythic Plus has now got an official scoring system that operates kind of like Raider.io, but it's in-game. So it's going to let you basically have an idea of somebody's Mythic Plus experience at a glance, and it is also the system used for unlocking Valor Point upgrade thresholds, as well as numerous achievements. Now, the way that it works is that it will very much incentivize you to do high dungeons on both tyrannical and fortified weeks, and that does mean that it will take longer to get some achievements like Keystone Master. But the pro of this system is that the score is really a lot more flexible. Blizzard have then also added a Keystone Trader at the end of dungeons. They'll give you 1 reroll per day, and you can basically reroll a keystone if the dungeon that you just did was timed and the key that you want to reroll is at or below the level of the key that you just timed. So while you'll always have to be pushing on based on what you get, or, by doing somebody else's key, what this will do, though, is it'll help you dodge dungeons you really want to skip, or maybe have another chance at targeting a dungeon you really want some gear from. Now, Blizzard have also added in a Keystone Depleter NPC in Oribos, and for the dungeons themselves, Blizzard have done a whole bunch of tuning, really nerfing quite a few trash bosses and affixes, especially the oft-hated Storming affix. But that's not all, because of course there is the new seasonal affix of Tormented. It adds 4 lieutenants to each dungeon, the defeat of whom will grant each person in your party an anima power, so it's a neat thing to play around. But if you fail to kill them, for each one that is still alive, the final boss will get a big buff. And so far, by the way, it seems like the community opinion is that this is a more fun and just better one than Prideful. Now, there's also a new reward. If you time a dungeon on plus 20, you'll actually unlock a teleport to that dungeon, making it super handy to travel the Shadowlands. Now, for PvPers, you lot aren't getting any new maps or anything, but you are getting something pretty big for gameplay: a PvP talent rework. Many talents are gone, and new ones have been added. This is going to shake up the PvP meta, and that will bring you a bunch of new gameplay. PvP gearing is then also changed, with PvP gear basically operating like it did in Warlords of Draenor, having a slightly lower base item level, but then increasing significantly in item level upon entering PvP combat. This should help PvP gear always be your best option for PvP, but there's 1 or 2 quibbles about those shards of domination. We'll mention that later. Now, of course, you can also get the usual seasonal rewards and the vicious mount, plus, a nice little thing, they've finally fixed the Comp Stomp Brawl, so it's back too. Torghast then, it has been reworked. Well, just its regular mode anyway, and it is now 5 floors long instead of 6, it has no death counter, and it's based on a new scoring system. So depending on basically your speed and your thoroughness, you will get a score. And that score will end up giving you basically between a 1 and 5 star rating. Now, as a part of this, you also get this little streak bar. And if you fill that up via killing and clicking, it will empower you. Now, that empowerment, along with a bunch of other things, can be upgraded using the Box of Many Things, which is essentially Torghast's version of the Horrific Vision upgrade system. So after Torghast runs, you'll get some points, you can spend them in the research tree, and it's pretty much a weekly gated thing. Torghast then also has new cosmetic rewards for you. There's a bunch of things for your back slot, and there's also new shoulders, as well as new achievements, like getting a neat mount, really cool looking mount, for clearing each wing on the hardest layer with 5 stars, which will be no mean feat. Legendaries have also seen some change, getting 2 new racks, item level 250 and 260, and having easier acquisition, as Soul Ash now drops far more, and is also sort of bind on account via a new tradable item. Then, for cosmetic lovers, you guys are actually getting a decent amount too. There's many new mounts to get. There's the new shoulder transmogs, the new back transmogs via Torghast. There's a Maw-themed Sanctum of Domination set that it's like the full legendary set, basically. It looks really cool. As well as some neat armor and weapons from Tazavesh. There's transmog glasses, and of course a bunch of pets and Covenant things too. Now, content-wise, beyond what I've covered so far in today's video, there is the new zone of Korthia, and there is a new subzone of the Maw, as well as, of course, the removal of the Eye of the Jailer and the removal of mounting restrictions. Now, Korthia's got a daily narrative, a daily quest reputation, and a rares and treasures reputation called the Archivist's Codex. Now, what this means in terms of things to get for your character, well, zone upgrades, cosmetic rewards, item level 200 catch-up gear that can be upgraded all the way to item level 233. Eventually, it's kind of gated. Now, we'll also get new campaign steps that continue on the 9.0 lore, as of course we learn about the Dominated Anduin, our enemies' plans, maybe we'll get to learn some of the Jailer's motivations, and we'll be visiting the pasts of some characters like Uther in a few neat quest lines. There's quite a lot of lore actually, though of course that's stuff that will unlock weekly as you earn renown. So, that is your overview of this patch. Now it's time for some pros and cons. Kicking it off with the pros, look, mega dungeons and raids are great. That's a thumbs up, that's a bunch of content you can just go and do. That's what I'll be doing. Then the PvP talent change and PvP gearing change I think is all stuff that's moving in the right direction, so it should shake that up in a good way. Also, there's many cosmetics to go after, so if that's your jam, you'll have plenty to do. Then I'd say that the general Korthia gameplay loop, while not being incredible, it certainly does beat the whole do the Maw plus world quests in 9.0, so that is a plus. As for Korthia, I think overall it's a pro in that it does have a few neat ideas. I will say though, it does feel a little bit conservative in terms of the quantity of content. Torghast then, as a pro, it's less of a pain point, but it's not actively great, but it is less of a pain, so it is better, which is a pro, but I don't think it's where it should be, which I guess is a con. So this is a pro-con, a pron. And also quality of life changes. There have been a few, like the bind on account Soul Ash. That stuff is good. Cons then. Well, dumb systems are dumb. Domination shards could have been quite good, but the specific implementation is just a bit frustrating. There's also many outstanding problems that are still outstanding. There's also not really a massive amount of content in this patch, and some of the content just isn't incredible. Korthia does feel like it's the best they could do, but for the whole City of Secrets promise, I think it feels a little bit small. I think it could have been a lot more. I just feel like it could have been far better realized with more time, and I think this is somewhere where COVID production issues are certainly felt. Then the Covenant assaults that happen in the Maw and Korthia, they are fine, but they are very par for the course. They are essentially condensed versions of the 8.3 zone assaults, you know? Do 4 quests, kill a rare, done. Not super hype. I would like to see World of Warcraft just get a bit more new and fresh. So essentially, it feels like Timeless Isle's sort of redo attempt 5 million, but it's in a darker zone that, maybe won't be as appealing to people. Some quality of life stuff has been added, which is a pro, but it does feel like it's too little too late. I mean, why did it take this long to get a Keystone vendor or a depleting NPC? Also, no refinements to the 9.0.5 Valor Point system. It seems like this expansion has a bunch of issues that really should have been fixed in 9.1, not 9.1.5. Shards of Domination, then, the potential is completely squandered, making them something that I think is neutral at best and a frustration at worst. So that's roughly the pros and cons. I mean, certainly if you want to throw another con in there, the whole Anima loop still doesn't feel great. The whole Sanctum upgrade loop still doesn't feel great. And I guess that leads me in to outstanding issues. Shadowlands, while it really did nail the first few weeks in terms of powering up your character and stuff like that, it did end up having quite a few issues, and many of those are outstanding. So Conduit Energy is still in the game. Need I say more? It's a bit of a dumb thing. I mean, imagine making something to essentially limit and throttle the top 1% of players in a way that's just annoying to them, but barely noticeable to anyone else. To me, it seems like all it's accomplished is pissing people off and making PTR class testing a total nightmare. So it seems like that's a waste of time, and it still will be. Conduits then. I mean, there's more stuff for the empowered conduits and stuff now. Some of them are fine, but Blizzard have continued their upgrade system from 9.0. So you better hope that your ideal conduits drop somewhere at a high item level. Even with that, though, to max them out at item level 252, you will feel the need to grind out random conduit upgrade items. And this is the sort of thing that does not feel good, it just feels like it disrespects your time, and I'm sad they've continued that pattern into 9.1. Also, Blizzard talked about doing something to let people quickly swap covenants after patches, because of course a patch can really have big balance concerns. I believe Ian said that in a Q&A during beta, but that's not here in 9.1, so that's a pity. The Covenant swapping thing is still a friction bonanza. Then, while alt-friendliness is better, I still don't think it's good enough. I mean, Covenant, Sanctum, Anima upgrade achievements are not account-wide, which feels bad. You can't skip the Maw on a new alt. You can skip aspects of the 9.0 campaign, but not the 9.0 Covenant campaigns. So if your alt is in the same Covenant, perhaps for balance reasons as your main, you'll just have to redo the entire thing. And that is not particularly fun. I think it is rather daunting. And it's odd because that's a problem, yet of course they do give us in this patch a non-Covenant campaign skip, taking that whole sort of Bolvar questline straight to the 9.1 state. Bloody hell, you might have been listening to me for a while now and you're probably just thinking, well, is the damn thing different to play? Okay, so the main thing here is that there is new content in the niches that Warcraft does really well. Raids and dungeons, as well as some nice PvP changes and nice Mythic Plus changes. So for most active endgame players of World of Warcraft, it's more of the same but with new content, which I think is excellent. That's why we're turning up, that's why I'm excited. The notable difference is that the whole Korthia Maw world content gameplay is, generally speaking, much better than, I don't know, if you were just doing Shadowlands world quests before. Now, it does not really stand out amongst WoW's long list of patch zones, but it is better than what we had. Though there are dumb things, like it being an improvement on 8.2's Benthic gear in every way, in terms of its catch-up system, other than you just can't choose the slot that you get base items for. It's completely random, which is very silly. It's the same WoW systems design team making strange moves that seem very blind to their past lessons, but with all new content, most of which is great, because their encounter designers are generally quite great. So bored, casual players will have more to do this time. I mean, easily a month sub, but do remember, they do time gate the campaign weekly, so you can't play it all at once within one subscription. Endgame players, I think, will have similar frustrations to what they had before, but they will have more content to enjoy. Torghast then will make you much less frustrated, but it still is very much tied to player power, and that constrains what Torghast can essentially be, which essentially means it is still Torghast, but it's less of a pain to do, and your runs will be a bit shorter. So that's essentially it. With that said, is it right for you? For the casual WoW fan, I'd say maybe just resub for a month or two to see some of the new story, lore, sort of content, things like that. Maybe hop into the raid on, on normal. Maybe check out Tazavesh, see if Korthi is fun. Just that, wait, the campaign is actually time-gated, which is quite unlike that other big MMO out there when its story content comes out. So you might just feel like you've got to be subbed waiting for the weeks to tick by to get the narrative. If you're there for that. So kind of not great for a content tourist, but I suppose merely just a frustration for all of our next sets of players. I mean, the easiest way to get the most bang for your buck out of this is to probably wait until the same month that Sylvanas comes out on LFR, because by then you should be able to use the Rapid Renown catch-up to basically do all of the new content, including the new raid, in a month. So if you're purely just content tourist, you want to do a quick blast of WoW, that's almost certainly the most efficient way to do it. And of course, if you don't have to wait for time gating and stuff like that, it might actually be more fun to play because it might be, well, better paced feeling. But hey, if you want some lore, just sub to us. It'll be free and you'll get a whole bunch of it. Okay, next. If you take our previous player profile and add in that you are a collector, then there's actually a ton to do in patch 9.1, making it easily worth a month or two of your subscription. Because while you're waiting for those Covenant campaigns to unlock, there'll be plenty of mounts and things like that to grind out. I mean, seriously, judging by how long it took to get our cosmetics master document prepared and put together, you'll have plenty of things to do. Especially if you like the transmogs on top of the mounts, because there's a lot of cool new mogs to go for. Well, if we add being a raider to what I just said, especially perhaps just a casual heroic raider, maybe a bit like me, then, well, there are still quite a few issues in terms of game systems and the amount of grinding that one may feel like they've got to do in order to, not fall behind. Now, I'm sure the content will be great, but it would just be lovely if we could kind of get old school tier sets and just call it a day, so that, our thoughts could go elsewhere. We could just focus on the fun. But certainly, if you are in a guild, you might just be best to, stick around until all of the people who want to get the legendary bow and things like that have got it, and then halt till the next patch. I mean, hopefully the raid will be pretty fun. And certainly, if you're like me, you're the type of player who will enjoy Tazavesh, so there is plenty to do. Okay, let's go for the PvPers. Unfortunately for PvP, there are potentially quite a few issues with how Shards of Domination from the raid could impact PvP, even though there is a 50% nerf to them in PvP. And there's also no changes to counter the boosting problem that happened in Season 1, or at least no changes that I think will actually work. But the rest of the things for PvP actually are in a good direction. Now, those who still want the WoW team to be making new battlegrounds, well, you guys will still be sad. But hey, given the team's track record, you're used to not getting much new PvP content. Does seem, though, that the fundamental systems are all moving in a good direction with this patch, making it, I think, a more interesting patch than most for PvP players. For the Mythic Plusers, of course, there's no new dungeon to do in Mythic Plus, but the general quality of life changes and the changes to the dungeons themselves are actually quite great. Now, that said, there is zero new Mythic Plus content. It is just another season of gear progression and a new affix. So that's great for players who are content, just keep on doing M+, but I don't think it's really enough for what M+ seems to be in the game. Of course, remember, Tazavesh will hit the Mythic Plus system in patch 9.2. But I will say this, for a lapsed dungeoneer like myself, who has not spent much time in these dungeons, well, this is the best version of these dungeons. This is going to be a better Mythic Plus season than Season 1, I think, save some domination gear issues. But this is basically a perfect time to start Mythic Plus, in my opinion. And that's what I'm going to be doing. For the cutting edge then, look, it's the same old. There'll be a ton of stuff to keep on top of during the initial weeks and months as you try to optimize your gear and your class for mythic rating. The Mog grind for sockets and content upgrades, that has got a facelift and a change of scenery, and that it now happens in Korthia instead of the Maw, and that is a better thing. But the same fundamental issues are still going to be here. But hey, you guys must be used to those now, right? I mean, it's great. You get a new flavor of being fooled around with every few patches. It must be exciting. Okay, what about me then? As for me, it's pretty simple. Is there a new raid? Yes. Mega dungeon? Yes. Is it in line with my personal gameplay goals? Yes. Am I sad about all the downsides and concerned that World of Warcraft is taking on the gameplay structure of Destiny 2 at Endgame? Yes. Am I worried that they are far too slow to respond to player feedback, and that this will be another issue of WoW being a paid beta until somehow the end of the expansion feels sort of okay, but perhaps only by the end of the final patch, after the final patch gets its patches? Still concerned about that? Yes. Look, it's another serving of the modern World of Warcraft experience. Will this convert people to the modern team's way of doing things? No. Will this make people who like the current way of things happy? Yes. That's it. Think about your reaction to the words that I have just spoken, and you'll basically know if it's time to resub or not. For most World of Warcraft fans, I'd say there is a good 1 to 2 months of content here, certainly not 6. I mean, hey, new raid, new mega dungeon, that's pretty sweet. It will be fun. They do a banging job in those. That's more than enough for me to want to play, even though that is in the face of the game having a bunch of silly issues. That's the video. Let me know if you're going to be resubbing or not, and I suppose, see ya? Yeah, I'll end it here. Wait, no, I'll shill our Patreon. Go to our Patreon. We've got podcasts, we've got, physical loot, pin stuff that you get. This is all very cool. Okay, now I'm truly going. Bye.